Hey there, and welcome to the Magic Snail channel. This is where we share real life stories about people dealing with all kinds of situations. Some are funny, some are messy, and some are downright unbelievable. If you like hearing stories that feel real and keep you curious, you'll feel right at home here. So go ahead, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want more. We've got plenty of stories waiting for you.
You called it branding. I call it fraud. And this is your legacy, Adrian.
I found out my wife was cheating on me while trying to sync her iPad to our home printer. 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, and a mortgage later, I'm staring at a text thread that would make a sailor blush. The worst part? She signed it, "Your loving butterfly, LL." My wife doesn't even like butterflies. She's allergic to most flowers and thinks nature is too unpredictable. But apparently, Adrian Riker brings out her inner Disney princess. The messages dated back 3 months. 3 months of, "I can't wait to taste you again," and "Derek doesn't satisfy me like you do." Adrian, her college boyfriend turned motivational speaker, was apparently very motivated to destroy my marriage. I sat in my home office, surrounded by engineering blueprints and coffee-stained notepads, reading about how my wife planned to leave me once the kids are more independent. How thoughtful of her to consider timing. "Derek, honey?" Lena's voice floated from the kitchen. "Can you help me with the Wi-Fi? My Instagram isn't loading properly." I closed the iPad and walked downstairs, my mind already calculating. Lena stood by the granite counter, dressed in her signature athleisure outfit, holding a green smoothie that probably cost more than my lunch. Her highlighted hair was pulled back in a messy bun that took 30 minutes to achieve. "Sure thing, babe," I said, forcing a smile. "Just a connection issue." She kissed my cheek absently, her attention already back on her phone. "I'm doing a live stream in 10 minutes about morning routines. Can you keep the kids quiet?" "Of course." I watched her scroll through comments from her followers, women who bought into her carefully curated lifestyle brand. If they only knew their wellness guru was getting her chakras aligned by another man. That evening, after Max and Hannah went to bed, Lena announced she was going to a wellness retreat in Colorado for the weekend. A chance to reconnect with her authentic self and network with other influencers. "Sounds expensive," I said, not looking up from my engineering journal. "It's an investment in my brand, Derek. You wouldn't understand." She sighed dramatically. "Sometimes I feel like I'm growing and you're just staying the same." I nodded thoughtfully. "You're probably right. Maybe I need to invest in myself too." She seemed surprised by my agreement. "Really? You do that?" "Absolutely. A man's got to evolve, right?" The next morning, I watched her pack designer workout clothes and organic skincare products worth more than my monthly car payment. She hugged me goodbye, her perfume masking the scent of deception. "I love you," she whispered against my ear. "I love you too," I replied, meaning it. That was the problem. After her car disappeared down our suburban street, I activated the GPS tracker I'd installed in her car the night before. A small device, easily hidden, completely legal on a vehicle I co-owned. Within 2 hours, her signal stopped at an address I'd already researched. Adrian Riker's townhouse, 40 minutes from our home. I drove there myself, parking across the street with a clear view of his front door. Adrian lived in one of those trendy developments where every house looked identical except for the door color. His was red, naturally. The color of passion and stop signs. At 3:47 p.m., they emerged together. Adrian was exactly what I'd expected from his LinkedIn profile and motivational speaking photos. Tall, artificially tanned, wearing a designer polo shirt that probably cost more than my work boots. He had that practiced smile of someone who made a living telling people their dreams were valid. They held hands walking to his BMW, a car that screamed, "I have something to prove." Lena laughed at something he said, throwing her head back in exaggerated delight. She never laughed like that with me anymore. When they kissed in the parking lot of a gas station, I took photos through my telephoto lens. I didn't feel angry watching them. I felt methodical, clinical even. Like studying a structural failure in a building. You document everything before you determine how to fix it. That weekend, while Lena was supposedly finding herself through guided meditation and organic juice cleanses, I found myself in ways I hadn't expected. I researched Adrian's business, his speaking engagements, his social media presence. I studied his patterns like I studied load-bearing calculations. Adrian Riker was a fraud, but a successful one. His motivational speaking company pulled in 6 figures annually by telling people they could manifest success through positive thinking and expensive seminars. He had 3 business partners, 2 ex-wives, and a habit of promoting cryptocurrency schemes on his Instagram. Most importantly, he was using Lena's growing influencer platform to legitimize his business. She'd been promoting his seminars to her followers, taking a percentage of sales. They weren't just having an affair, they were building a business together behind my back. When Lena returned Sunday night, she was glowing with what she called spiritual renewal. She showed me photos from the retreat, carefully cropped to exclude any evidence of Adrian's presence. She'd even bought a souvenir t-shirt that said, "Mountain High, Soul Higher." "I feel like a new person," she announced, unpacking crystal jewelry and organic teas. "I think I've been living too small, Derek. I need to expand my horizons." "Sounds like you've got big plans," I said, helping her carry her bags upstairs. "I do, Adrian. I mean, some of the other speakers at the retreat, they think I have real potential. They want to collaborate on some projects." I nodded encouragingly. "That's exciting. You should definitely pursue that." She looked surprised again. "You're being really supportive." "I wasn't sure you'd understand." "I'm learning to be more open-minded," I said. "Speaking of which, I've been thinking about what you said about investing in myself." Over the next few weeks, I began my own evolution. I started small, signing up for a premium business license that would allow me to form consulting partnerships. I researched social media marketing, learning how to track engagement metrics and identify fake followers. I studied online reputation management, discovering how easy it was to build someone up or tear them down with the right strategy. Most importantly, I began documenting everything. Every lie Lena told, every secret meeting with Adrian, every dollar she spent on their joint ventures. I created a timeline, cross-referencing her stories with GPS data, credit card statements, and social media posts. I discovered that Adrian had been taking money from their joint business account, money that technically belonged to both of them, but which came from my savings account that Lena had access to. He'd been using it to fund his lifestyle, expensive dinners, weekend trips, even a down payment on a new car. The beauty was in the details. Lena had been so focused on hiding the affair that she'd been sloppy with the financial deception. She'd signed business documents putting both our names on her influencer company, giving me equal access to all accounts and decisions. She'd literally signed away her power while thinking she was gaining it. 1 month after the wellness retreat, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Lena and Adrian at a restaurant, holding hands over expensive wine. The message read, "Your wife is cheating on you. Thought you should know." I stared at the message, genuinely puzzled. I hadn't sent this to myself, and I couldn't imagine who else would have taken the photo. Then I realized Adrian had enemies. His business practices had made him rivals in the motivational speaking world. Someone else was watching him, documenting his moves. This gave me an idea. I created several fake social media accounts, each with different backgrounds and motivations. Some were disgruntled former clients of Adrian's seminars. Others were concerned friends of Lena's followers. A few were anonymous tip accounts that specialized in exposing influencer fraud. Through these accounts, I began feeding information into the ecosystem. Nothing defamatory, nothing that couldn't be verified. Just strategically placed facts that painted a picture of Adrian as a man who used relationships to advance his business interests. I shared screenshots of his previous business failures, court documents from his divorce proceedings, and testimonials from people who'd attended his seminars and felt scammed. I made sure to include just enough truth to make it credible, but framed it in ways that made Adrian look manipulative and opportunistic. The information spread organically through gossip networks and business forums. Adrian's reputation began to shift from successful motivational speaker to possible scam artist. His booking requests decreased, his social media engagement dropped. Meanwhile, Lena's influencer career was mysteriously thriving. I'd been buying followers for her account, boosting her posts, and creating engagement that made her appear more successful than she actually was. Her confidence soared as her numbers grew, making her bolder in her deception. She started staying out later, making more frequent trips to visit Adrian. She began talking about expanding her business and taking more risks. She even suggested we remortgage the house to fund her influencer career. "I think I could really make it big, Derek," she said one evening, showing me her latest post metrics. "Adrian thinks I have what it takes to be a major brand influencer." We could be looking at seven-figure deals within a year. I studied her analytics, nodding thoughtfully. These numbers are impressive, almost too good to be true. What do you mean? Nothing bad. Just that success like this usually takes years to build. You're growing faster than most established influencers. She smiled smugly. Maybe I'm just naturally talented at this. Maybe you are, I agreed. Or maybe someone's been giving you artificial help. Her smile faltered slightly. What are you suggesting? Nothing. I'm just thinking like an engineer. When something grows this fast, there's usually an explanation. That night, I heard her on the phone with Adrian, discussing her sudden success and whether it was sustainable. Their conversation revealed that they were both suspicious of her rapid growth, but neither could explain it. They were starting to doubt their own business instincts. Perfect. 2 weeks later, I implemented phase 2 of my plan. I'd been monitoring Adrian's speaking schedule, identifying his most important upcoming events. He had a major presentation scheduled for a business conference in Chicago, an event that could make or break his credibility in the industry. I spent 3 days learning everything I could about the conference's technical systems. The venue used a standard AV setup that I could access through their Wi-Fi network. On the day of Adrian's presentation, I was sitting in a coffee shop 2 blocks away, logged into their system with credentials I'd obtained through a former colleague who worked in event management. At 2:15 p.m., exactly 5 minutes into Adrian's presentation about authenticity in personal branding, I activated a pre-programmed slideshow that replaced his presentation with a montage of contradictory quotes from his various social media accounts. The audience watched as Adrian's own words contradicted themselves across dozens of slides. Screenshots of him promoting get-rich-quick schemes while simultaneously warning people about financial scams. Photos of him at expensive resorts while posting about the virtue of simple living. Messages about the importance of honesty while advertising services he wasn't qualified to provide. The coup de grace was a slide showing his multiple business failures, complete with court documents and bankruptcy filings he'd never disclosed to his current clients. Adrian stood on stage, frantically clicking his remote, unable to regain control of his presentation. The audience began murmuring, then laughing, then openly discussing what they were seeing. Someone started recording the presentation on their phone. By evening, videos of motivational speakers' epic fail were circulating on social media. Adrian's reputation was destroyed in real time, broadcast to thousands of people who would never trust him again. That night, Lena came home in tears. "Something terrible happened to Adrian today," she said, collapsing on our couch. His presentation was sabotaged. Someone hacked the system and embarrassed him in front of everyone. "That's awful," I said, sitting beside her. "Do they know who did it?" "The conference organizers are investigating, but it could have been anyone." "Adrian has some enemies in the business world," I rubbed her back comfortingly. "I'm sure he'll bounce back. Successful people always do." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "You really think so?" "I think people get what they deserve," I said. Eventually. Over the following weeks, Adrian's career continued its downward spiral. Speaking engagements were canceled. Business partnerships dissolved. His social media following plummeted as people shared stories of his questionable business practices. But Lena remained loyal to him, which was exactly what I'd expected. She saw his downfall as proof that he needed her support, not evidence that he was the wrong man to trust. She began spending more time with him, trying to help him rebuild his reputation. This gave me the opportunity I'd been waiting for. I'd been corresponding with Margie, Lena's best friend, through a fake social media account. Margie was a divorced real estate agent who lived vicariously through Lena's exciting life. She'd been helping Lena maintain her deception, providing alibis and cover stories when needed. Through our online conversations, I'd learned that Margie knew about the affair and actively supported it. She believed Derek was boring and that Lena deserved someone more dynamic. She'd been encouraging Lena to leave me for months. I arranged to meet Margie at a wine bar downtown using the fake identity I'd created. I told her I was a journalist researching a story about influencer culture and wanted to interview her about her friend's success. Margie was eager to talk, especially after 3 glasses of wine. She bragged about helping Lena navigate her complex situation and praised Adrian as a real entrepreneur who understood Lena's potential. "Derek is just so ordinary," she said, leaning across the table conspiratorially. "He's a nice guy, but he doesn't have Adrian's vision. Lena needs someone who can match her energy." I nodded sympathetically, recording the conversation on my phone. It must be difficult for her being in that situation. Oh, it is. But she's handling it brilliantly. She's building her brand while keeping Derek in the dark. Adrian's teaching her about business strategy, showing her how to leverage her platform for maximum impact. That's smart. How long have they been working together? Months now. They have this whole plan mapped out. Once Lena's following gets bigger, she'll leave Derek and go public with their relationship. Adrian thinks the authenticity angle will actually help her brand, showing that she chose love over security. I encouraged her to elaborate, and she revealed details about their business partnership, their future plans, and the ways they'd been, manipulating both Derek and Lena's followers. By the end of the evening, I had hours of recorded material documenting the extent of their deception. Margie had not only confessed to enabling the affair, but had also revealed financial improprieties and business fraud that could have serious legal consequences. I thanked her for her time and promised to send her a copy of the article when it was published. She gave me her contact information and asked me to keep her updated on the story's progress. The next morning, I created a new anonymous social media account and began posting excerpts from Margie's confession. Nothing that would immediately identify her, but enough to show that someone close to the situation was willing to reveal the truth. The posts gained traction quickly, shared by accounts that specialized in exposing influencer fraud. Comments poured in from people who'd suspected something was wrong with Lena's sudden success. Her followers began asking questions about her authenticity, her business practices, and her relationship with Adrian. Lena panicked. She called me at work, crying hysterically. "Someone's spreading lies about me online," she said. "They're saying I'm fake, that my success isn't real. They're attacking my character." "What kind of lies?" I asked. "They're saying I'm having an affair, that I'm using people, that my business is fraudulent. Someone even posted audio of someone talking about my personal life." I made appropriate sympathetic sounds. "That's terrible. Do you have any idea who might be doing this?" "It has to be someone who knows me personally. Someone who has access to private information. Maybe it's one of Adrian's enemies," I suggested. "You said he had some business rivals?" "Maybe," she said, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. "Derek, I need to ask you something." "Of course." "Have you been checking my phone, my computer? I know this sounds paranoid, but I feel like someone's been watching me." "Lena, why would I do that?" "I trust you completely." The lie came easily, delivered with the same calm tone I used to explain structural calculations to clients. She seemed reassured by my response, though I could tell she was still suspicious. That evening, she came home with Adrian. It was the first time he'd been to our house, and I found it fascinating to meet my wife's lover in person. He was smaller than I'd expected, and his tan looked orange under our kitchen lights. He had the kind of aggressively confident handshake that screamed insecurity, and he couldn't maintain eye contact for more than a few seconds. "Derek, right?" he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Lena's told me so much about you." "I'm Adrian, her business partner." "Nice to meet you," I replied. "I've heard a lot about your work together." "Yeah, Lena's got real potential." "I'm helping her navigate the influencer space, showing her how to monetize her platform effectively." I nodded politely. "That's generous of you. I imagine you're busy with your own career." His smile tightened slightly. "I'm between speaking engagements right now, taking some time to focus on consulting work." "That's smart. Sometimes a step back helps you see the bigger picture." Lena jumped in quickly. "Adrian's been amazing. He's taught me so much about branding and audience development." "I can see that," I said, looking between them. "Your numbers have been incredible lately." Adrian's expression became more guarded. Numbers can be misleading. "What matters is engagement quality, not just quantity." "Absolutely," I agreed. "Although I have to admit, I'm curious about the technical side of things. As an engineer, I find the algorithms fascinating." I spent the next hour asking detailed questions about social media analytics, user engagement patterns, and growth strategies. Adrian became increasingly uncomfortable as I probed deeper into the specifics of Lena's success. He clearly knew something wasn't right with her numbers, but he couldn't explain what. He'd been taking credit for her growth without understanding how it was actually happening. After he left, Lena confronted me. "What was that about?" "What do you mean?" "All those questions about my business. You've never shown interest in my work before. I told you I was trying to be more supportive." I thought you'd be happy that I was taking an interest. She studied my face suspiciously. It felt like you were interrogating him. I was just making conversation. If you're going to be working together, I figured I should get to know him. We're not just working together, Derek. We're... She stopped herself, but the admission hung in the air between us. You're what? Nothing. Forget it. But I could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to confess, to stop living the lie, but she was afraid of the consequences. She was trapped between her desire for honesty and her fear of losing everything she'd built. I decided to help her make the choice. The next morning, I left a burner phone on the kitchen counter, queued up with a recording of Adrian talking to one of his business partners. I'd obtained the audio through a contact in the conference industry, someone who'd been investigating Adrian's business practices. In the recording, Adrian described Lena as useful for now and bragged about using her platform to legitimize his business. He called her emotionally needy and suggested that her marriage made her desperate for validation. Most damaging was his admission that he planned to phase her out once he'd rebuilt his reputation, replacing her with someone with better connections. I pretended to leave for work, then waited in my car around the corner. 20 minutes later, I heard Lena screaming inside the house. When I returned, claiming I'd forgotten my laptop, I found her sitting on the kitchen floor, crying and clutching the phone. "Derek," she said, looking up at me with devastated eyes. "I need to tell you something." "What's wrong?" "I've been lying to you. I've been having an affair with Adrian. We've been working together, but it's more than that. I thought I loved him, but..." She gestured helplessly at the phone. I sat down beside her on the floor. "How long?" "3 months. I'm so sorry, Derek. I never meant for it to happen." "Are you in love with him?" "I thought I was, but listening to him talk about me like that..." She started crying again. "He doesn't care about me. He's just using me." I put my arm around her shoulders. "I know." She looked at me sharply. "You know? How do you know?" "I've known for weeks, Lena. I've been waiting for you to tell me." "You've known?" "And you didn't say anything?" "I wanted to give you the chance to be honest with me. I hoped you'd choose our marriage over whatever you thought you had with him." She buried her face in her hands. "I'm so stupid. I threw away 15 years for someone who thinks I'm just a business opportunity." "You didn't throw it away yet," I said carefully, "but you came close. Can you forgive me? Can we fix this?" I looked at her, this woman I'd loved for half my adult life, now broken and desperate on our kitchen floor. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to rebuild what we'd had. But I'd seen too much, learned too much about who she really was. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I need time to think. I'll do anything, Derek. I'll cut off all contact with Adrian. I'll shut down my business if you want. I'll go to counseling, whatever it takes. First, I need you to tell me everything, every lie, every secret, every detail of what you've been doing." She did. Over the next 4 hours, she confessed to the affair, the business partnership, the financial deception, and the lies she'd told our children. She revealed details I didn't even know, including plans she and Adrian had discussed about divorcing me and moving to California together. I listened without comment, taking mental notes of everything she said. When she finished, I told her I needed space to process everything. "I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days," I said. "I'll call you when I'm ready to talk." "Derek, please don't leave. We can work through this together. I can't be around you right now, Lena. I need to figure out what I want." I packed a bag and drove to a hotel downtown. From there, I called my lawyer, my accountant, and a private investigator I'd researched weeks earlier. I also called my brother, who lived 3 states away, and asked him to be prepared to take the kids for a few weeks if necessary. What I didn't tell Lena was that I'd already made my decision. Her confession had simply confirmed what I'd suspected. She wasn't just unfaithful, she was fundamentally different from the woman I'd married. She'd become someone who could lie convincingly, steal strategically, and manipulate emotionally. She'd become someone I couldn't trust with my future or my children's well-being. The next phase of my plan required precise timing and careful execution. I'd been building toward this moment for months, and I couldn't afford to make mistakes now. I started by contacting the IRS about potential tax fraud related to Adrian's business practices. I had documentation showing that he'd been reporting fake business expenses and hiding income through shell companies. I also had evidence that he'd been using Lena's business account to launder money from his failing ventures. Next, I reached out to the Better Business Bureau and several consumer protection agencies about Adrian's motivational speaking business. I provided them with testimonials from people who'd attended his seminars and felt scammed, along with documentation of his false advertising claims. I also contacted the venues where Adrian had upcoming speaking engagements, anonymously providing them with information about his reputation problems and the controversy surrounding his business practices. Within a week, Adrian's remaining speaking engagements were canceled. His business partners distanced themselves from him. His social media accounts were flooded with negative comments from former clients who'd been inspired by the recent revelations to share their own experiences. Meanwhile, Lena's influencer career began to collapse as people connected her to Adrian's scandal. Her followers started asking questions about her business practices, her authenticity, and her relationship with the disgraced motivational speaker. I waited until her follower count had dropped by 60% before I made my next move. I returned home after 5 days, finding Lena desperate and contrite. She'd been calling me constantly, begging for forgiveness and promising to change. She'd already deleted all her social media accounts and cut off contact with Adrian. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I told her, "about us, about our marriage, about what we both want." "I know what I want," she said quickly. "I want our family back. I want to fix what I broke." "I want that too," I said. "But I need to know that you're serious about changing, that you're willing to be completely honest with me from now on." "I am. I'll do anything." "Good. Because I have some conditions." I handed her a document I'd prepared with my lawyer's help. It was a post-nuptial agreement that would protect my assets and ensure my custody rights if our marriage failed again. "I need you to sign this," I said. "It's just a precaution to make sure we're both protected." She read through it quickly, her face growing pale. "Derek, this gives you almost everything if we divorce. The house, the business, primary custody of the kids." "It protects both of us," I said. "If you're serious about saving our marriage, you won't need to worry about divorce provisions." She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the terms. "This feels like you're planning for our marriage to fail." "I'm planning for our marriage to succeed," I replied, "but I need to know that you're invested in making it work. Signing this proves that you're committed to our family, not just your own interests." She signed it, though I could see the resentment in her eyes. She felt trapped, forced to choose between her security and her pride. She chose security, which told me everything I needed to know about her character. Over the following weeks, I continued to systematically destroy Adrian's reputation while rebuilding my own position. I'd been documenting everything from the beginning, creating a detailed timeline of Lena's deception and Adrian's manipulation. I also began reaching out to other women who'd been involved with Adrian, using the network I'd built through my fake social media accounts. I discovered that Lena wasn't his first victim. He had a pattern of targeting married women with successful careers or growing businesses. I connected these women with each other, creating a support network that helped them realize they'd been manipulated. Several of them decided to take legal action against Adrian for business fraud and emotional manipulation. As Adrian's world crumbled around him, Lena became increasingly isolated. Her former friends in the influencer world avoided her, afraid of being associated with the scandal. Her business partnerships dissolved, her confidence evaporated. She became dependent on me in ways she hadn't been since early in our marriage. She needed my approval, my forgiveness, my reassurance that she was still worthwhile. It was exactly where I wanted her, but I wasn't done yet. 3 months after her confession, I told Lena I wanted to attend a business networking event where Adrian was scheduled to speak. It was one of his last remaining engagements, a small conference for entrepreneurs trying to rebuild their reputations. "Why do you want to go to that?" she asked nervously. "I want to understand what happened to us," I said. "I want to see him in person, to get closure." "I don't think that's a good idea." "You don't get to decide what's good for me anymore, Lena. You lost that right when you started lying to me." She flinched at my words, but she didn't argue. She'd learned not to challenge me directly, having discovered that I was no longer the passive, accommodating husband she'd taken for granted. The networking event was held in a hotel conference room downtown. About 50 people attended, mostly small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. Adrian was one of 3 speakers scheduled to present on resilience in business. I sat in the back row watching as he took the stage. He looked older than when I'd met him at my house, more tired and desperate. His suit was expensive, but ill-fitting, and his confident smile seemed forced. He began his presentation with a story about overcoming adversity, about how recent challenges had taught him valuable lessons about authenticity and integrity. The irony was almost too perfect. 15 minutes into his talk, I stood up and walked to the front of the room. The audience turned to look at me, confused by the interruption. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I have a question about authenticity." Adrian's face went pale as he recognized me. "Sir, if you could please wait until the quanda portion." "I think this is relevant to your presentation," I interrupted. "You're talking about integrity, but I'm wondering how that applies to your business practices." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the room's AV system, using the same technical skills I'd employed months earlier. The screen behind Adrian filled with a PowerPoint presentation I'd prepared specifically for this moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the audience, "I'd like to share some information about authentic business practices." The first slide showed a photo of Adrian and Lena kissing in the gas station parking lot with the caption, "Building Business Relationships," the audience gasped. Adrian frantically tried to regain control of the presentation, but I'd locked him out of the system. The next slide showed financial documents proving that Adrian had been embezzling money from his business partners and clients. The slide after that contained testimonials from women he'd manipulated, including audio recordings of him describing his methods for exploiting emotionally vulnerable targets. "This is Derek Vale," I said, introducing myself to the stunned audience. "Adrian has been having an affair with my wife while stealing from her business account and planning to abandon her once she'd outlived her usefulness." I clicked to the next slide, which showed a timeline of Adrian's deceptions, complete with dates, documents, and recorded conversations. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. "I want everyone here to understand what authentic business practices look like," I continued. "They don't involve lying to your partners, stealing from your clients, or manipulating vulnerable people for personal gain." Adrian tried to speak, but his voice cracked. The audience was transfixed, some recording the presentation on their phones, others taking notes. The final slide contained a simple message: "Choose your business partners carefully, check their references, trust your instincts. And remember that authentic success never requires deception." I disconnected my phone and walked back to my seat. The room was silent except for the sound of Adrian's labored breathing. "Any questions?" I asked the audience. Adrian stumbled off the stage and out of the room. Several audience members approached me afterward, thanking me for the information and asking for copies of the documentation. I drove home feeling satisfied but not vindicated. Revenge was supposed to feel better than this, but mostly I felt empty. I destroyed 2 lives, ended my marriage, and traumatized my children, all in service of proving a point about consequences. Lena was waiting for me in the kitchen, her face streaked with tears. She'd obviously heard about the presentation through her network of former associates. "Why?" she asked simply. "Because you lit the match," I replied. "I just chose the building." She stared at me, finally understanding the scope of what I'd done. "You planned all of this, from the beginning." "I planned to give you enough rope to hang yourself," I said. "You did the rest. The followers, the business success, the way Adrian's career collapsed, that was all you. I created opportunities. You and Adrian made the choices." She sat down heavily in her chair. "You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life. I just documented it. What happens now? Now you live with the consequences of your choices. We get divorced. I get custody of the kids. You get to rebuild your life from scratch just like you wanted. I never wanted this. You wanted excitement. You wanted passion. You wanted to feel alive again. This is what that looks like." She looked at me with a mixture of fear and admiration. "When did you become so cold?" "When I realized that the woman I married had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could lie to my face every day for months while planning to abandon our family." "I'm still the same person, Derek. I made mistakes, but I'm still me." "No," I said firmly. "You're not. The woman I married wouldn't have been capable of what you did. She wouldn't have been able to look our children in the eye while planning to leave them for a man who saw her as a business opportunity." I walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back to her. "You lit the match, Lena. But I chose the building. Burn in it." I left her sitting in our kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of the life she'd thought she wanted. The divorce papers were already prepared. The custody arrangements were already decided. The financial settlements were already calculated. I'd won, but victory felt hollow. I'd proven that I could be just as manipulative and deceptive as she was, just as willing to destroy someone's life for personal satisfaction. Maybe that made me just as guilty as she was. Maybe we deserved each other. But I'd made my choice, and I'd live with the consequences, just like she would live with hers.